So the first point, which is understanding financial challenges, the financial challenges of living abroad. So the first point is taxation. A lot of people, when they're researching where they're going to go, all they do is look at the local taxes. And that's really, really important because you want to get an idea of how the taxes differ from where you're actually living. But it's also really important to look at the taxes on products. And there's an example here. So I'm from the UK. So if I was a UK resident, I have the option of paying into a pension scheme. I can pay into an ISA. I can pay into a general investment account. I've got other products such as offshore bonds. But something like an ISA, for example, it grows tax-free. You can take the money out tax-free. That's very, very tax efficient. So utilising that product doesn't really show the local tax rates, because if you're looking to invest your money in the local country and you're looking to just compare it versus capital gains tax rate, it doesn't give you a true reflection. So if you want to understand the products in the country of where you're going, the best way to do that is to speak to a financial advisor. A lot of these products are only available for a financial advisor as well. The second point is inheritance tax. So you need to look at your local inheritance tax and also inheritance tax of potentially where you're originally from. So this again depends on where you're actually from, what the rules are for that country. So again, being from the UK, inheritance tax, they tax you on your worldwide assets. That will change next year. So the UK's worked off of a domicile of origin, which means whatever your assets are worldwide, you will get taxed. But we're moving into a new system, which is domicile of residency, which means if you're outside of the UK for more than 10 tax years, you're only going to pay taxes on your assets that are in the UK. So this means you need to look at what the local taxes are as well, because there are scenarios where you may end up paying double tax. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you can structure your assets as well as possible to make sure that you're keeping things in a tax neutral jurisdiction to avoid potentially having taxation twice. Or on the next point here, which is cross-border double taxation agreements, understand how they actually work. And this is where it can get quite complicated, because living in one country is really, really simple if you're from that country. But then every single country have different laws. And you could, for example, get in a situation where you're ending up paying withholding tax, or, for example, for inheritance tax, that becomes an issue as well, because one good example, Germany has something like 200 double taxation agreements, but only 8 or 9 of those cover inheritance tax. And if, for example, you were to buy a fund or a stock in the US, if it's US domiciled, which is basically if the fund's, the ISA number on a fund, the code starts with US, then it means that it originally come from the US. So you end up paying withholding tax of 30% on dividends, and you can avoid that by buying something that's outside of the US. So each country will have different rules, but you want to make sure you can keep it as tax neutral as possible to avoid paying any unnecessary taxes. The same goes in the US for estate taxes. You could end up paying estate taxes if you're buying funds or stocks that are from there and you're living outside of the country. The last point here is currency. So you need to look at your local currency and also your home country. So as an example for me again, originally from the UK, which is pounds. I'm currently living in Spain, which is euros. So if you look at the pound euro over the last 10 years, it's fluctuated significantly. You saw the highs maybe almost 10 years ago of 140 compared to the pounds, and it dropped down to almost parity. So it was almost 1 for 1. So if you're expecting to live off of an income in a foreign country, you want to make sure you can mitigate this currency risk as much as possible. And there are different ways you can do that depending on the assets you have. You can't do it with everything. So things like state pensions, it's always going to be paid out in pounds, but you could move investment vehicles or even pensions, depending on the type of pension you have, into a different currency.